opinions expressed on the show are those of the guests or hosts, and not necessarily those of the advertisers, networks, platforms, or stations. Warning that the content of the show may not be suitable for all audiences, and that viewer discretion is advised. The show does not intend to provide medical, legal, or financial advice, and viewers or listeners should consult with a professional before making any decisions based on the information presented.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio. This is a broadcast coming from the headquarters of the Paranormal Intelligence Agency, and we are in an abandoned nuclear missile silo deep in the Dakota wastelands. And as usual, I have my trusty cohorts here with me, the paranormal crime fighting duo the Sundance Kid and Daisy are with me tonight, and this has been an interesting week as always. Some various themes sort of popped up in the paranormal world this week, and I thought we would sort of touch on all of them. So it's going to be a multi-topic show. And, Antarctica was one of those themes. And Antarctica seems to constantly pop up in the paranormal world. If you've followed anything over the last 10 years, Ancient Aliens, the work of Linda Moulton Howe, and now the work of a good friend of mine, Brad Olson, who's got a new book on the secrets of Antarctica coming out. I thought it would be timely to sort of touch up on that this evening. As always, we'll have paranormal in the news, and we're going to talk about really some interesting esoteric stuff. We're going to talk about psionics. We're going to talk about the how and whys that they have now chosen to change the term psionics. Apparently has become a loaded term. And now they're going to start using the phrase neuro-meditational interaction with the UAPs or UFOs. Fascinating stuff. There's a lot coming out from Coulthard and from the whistleblower, Jake Barber, and from Matthew Pines over at the Skywatcher program. And we're going to touch on that this evening. And we're going to touch on some cyber prophecy. The Webbot has been reiterating some things as well as recently as even today. And so we'll be talking about that. There is some paranormal in the news, as always, that we will touch up on here. UFO Revolution journalist releases new military video of unidentified UAPs. What could they be? And this is being run by TMZ. They're talking about, of course, Jeremy Corbell and the fact that he's got 4 or 5 new videos of craft that were leaked to him that interacted with a Navy vessel off the coast of California. That's a common theme with these craft. But as we're going to take a look at tonight, there's a whole other interesting aspect to the UAP mystery, which is all of this psionic stuff. It's the idea, it's the theme, it's the information coming out from whistleblowers that these craft aren't exactly the way people envision them being. For instance, there's no real control panel inside these craft. And that's something that even Bob Lazar has testified to. There's no, joystick with which you can control the craft or a steering wheel or anything like that. And lately, there's a lot of information coming out saying that these craft are, in fact, controlled through psionics, through human psychic neural link interaction with these craft. And there are people who are actually experimenting with calling them forward. We're going to be talking about that tonight. Physics.org is running an interesting article. An all-sky infrared camera named Dalek continues to search for alien technosignatures. And this was something that I touched upon last week when I discussed the idea that we are perhaps part of a Type 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale, and that we just are not cognizant of that fact yet. That over time, as they shape life on this planet to what they want it to be, they will actually farm us into their society in a way that's not traumatic to the species, because that would do them no good whatsoever. Here is a all-sky infrared camera named Dalek that is actively looking for what I talked about, which would be a Dyson sphere, an alien mega structure that is literally built around a star in such a way that it can harness the entire power of that star and not have any sort of leakage at all. Imagine being able to harness the power of our sun, the entire power of our sun, solely to fuel our technology to reach other stars and do the same exact thing. Now, it's been talked about by many an astrophysicist, some pretty brilliant minds in the world, that suggest that any society that reaches that stage of a Type 3 society will use what are called von Neumann probes in order to not only conceal its identity, but to create a safe barrier between it and any other potentially dangerous alien life forms. Von Neumann probes are self-replicating. For instance, they will go out, seed a planet, these sort of nano-engineered nanotechnology with the kind of artificial intelligence that we can only theorize about at this stage, is able to replicate itself and over time create a vast barrier between it and any other alien life form as it goes throughout its colonization of the galaxy. It's fascinating. But is that what we're seeing with our current UAP problem? Or are we seeing something far more down to earth in the way that it has been speculated that this is another species that was actually on our planet probably long before us and just have technological superiority to us and inhabit our oceans? Is that possible? I think it's one of the main tenets that's on the blackboard at the Pentagon right now. So, let's see what else we have this evening on Paranormal in the News. On Coast to Coast, a Colorado woman reports a Bigfoot sighting. That's not uncommon this time of year. As I stated on a previous show, it's dangerous this time of year to go out and pick wild berries. I have a theory that the many missing people in the wild that go wild berry picking this time of year are probably competing for a main food source with the Sasquatch species. I think that that could be a real motive. We know they have the means and the opportunity. The motive might be simple as competition for a food source that they just can't spare. Maybe they have to have it. So Let's see. So tonight we're going to be talking about the secrets of Antarctica, and we're going to be talking about psionic summoning and how and why that's related to esoteric teachings and related to the actual biological functioning of the human body, and how and why a lot of esoteric teachings throughout the centuries and the ages have taught so-called enlightenment, which really is just an awakening of someone's psychic abilities. How is it that encapsulated within human society through various ancient mystery schools, some of which we highly suspect can be traced all the way back to both the interaction with the Anunnaki and interaction with the Nomos species, probably is where this information came from. In fact, in the Book of Enoch, which is clearly a detailed account of Enoch's interaction with the so-called fallen angels, which were the Anunnaki that were, I call them the rebel Anunnaki. At some point, Enki, one of the two princes, was discovered lying to the Supreme Council, of which his father Anu of the Anunnaki, or people of Anu, presided over, and he was cast down with his followers. This is the sort of proto, Lucifer story that happens. So he gets cast down with his followers. It says 200 of them landed on Mount Armin, and from there the interaction with Enoch occurs. And it's in this interaction that some of these different teachings are bestowed upon mankind, and some of these teachings have to do with awakening psychic ability in the human species. So isn't it interesting that the human species had interaction with a species that was not human, that not only altered DNA within the species, but then also ended up bestowing secrets on the species in such a way that now, all these many, many eons later, these techniques, which are now being called neuro-meditational interactions with UFOs, are being utilized in order to trigger psychic abilities in human beings that are now interacting with the craft of another alien species. Or is it the same alien species? Have the Anunnaki returned? It's one of the major questions that's out there, or should be out there. And it's interesting because Ross Coulthart this week had Jake Barber, hour-long interview, and it's interesting because I previously reported that Jake Barber and a group of individuals who were all part of the UFO Legacy UFO Black Project Special Access projects that were in charge of actually retrieving UFOs. Those guys are all kind of working together, and it's a new program, and it's called Skywatcher. And Skywatcher has 6 different points that it's trying to make. So the 6 are: 1, preliminary observation; 2, structured data collection; 3, analysis and hypothesis testing; 4, peer review; 5, public disclosure; and 6, full disclosure and integration of that knowledge. That shows you the complexity of what it's going to take for people who are even part of the legacy UFO program to prove to the rest of our scientists, when they say peer review under point number 4, that's what they're talking about. Peer review by other scientists who will then validate their claims that this is in fact craft that they are interacting with that is non-human in origin. So what's fascinating about all of this is that in the Skywatcher program, they are utilizing what's called psionics to summon these craft. So imagine using meditational techniques, and each practitioner has a different protocol for how they obtain these meditational states of altered consciousness, and they literally summon these craft through a means that they are now referring to as neural meditational interaction with UAPs. When they summon these craft, those craft are appearing, and they are being filmed every single time. And they have recorded over 9 separate types of craft. They have sort of trifurcated, that's even a word, the 9 different kinds of craft into 3 different subcategories. And they say they can tell the difference between, advanced, that's the good guys' advanced technology, that's the bad guys' advanced technology, and the third bucket, as they like to call it, is alien in origin. And it's interesting that they are using 2 separate means by which to do this UFO summoning. One of those, as I'm stating, is psionic in nature or psychic in nature. The other is machine-based, and they refer to it as electromechanical calling. So in other words, they have computers set up that are basically designed to emit the right kind of signal, and we can only guess that this is probably the same signal that they keep detecting at Skinwalker Ranch, which I believe is 1.6 gigahertz. If I get that wrong, don't hang me, but I think it's something like that. And if they are using that and it's calling forth these craft that they're able to then film, what does that tell us about the species itself? It's interesting because they're basically using electromechanical calling to call in craft, and they're observing that it's the same kind of craft that respond to the electromechanical calling. Then they use psionics separately, not simultaneously, and they see what the effect of that is. And what the effect of that has been is that it has basically called forth a completely different series of anomalous objects. So do these craft, and I don't know the answer to this question, but I think it's worth asking, do these craft actually sort of span the distance between real and metaphysical? Is that possible, that in some way these craft are spiritual in nature? Some of them appear to originate from another dimension. And I say that because it is the Skywatcher group who now claim that they have in their possession a second jellyfish UFO video. And this one's up close and it's in color. And they claim that this jellyfish UFO video is showing an object or an entity that originates from another dimension of some kind. What's scary about that is that it's not really visible to the naked eye. You have to view these things through like thermal cameras and night vision cameras and infrared technology in order to actually see them, which means there could be purpose behind it disguising itself. And what is a weird jellyfish entity like that doing in our world? There's an awful lot of missing people out there. I'm just saying, and we've speculated many times that it's quite possible that other dimensions exist. And if they do, at least some of the life forms on those dimensions have probably developed intelligence enough to have figured out a way into this dimension. And there's been some pretty substantial anecdotal evidence to suggest that that is in fact the case. Even indigenous tribes claim that Bigfoot can traverse the space between both worlds, that it is both a physical and spiritual entity of some kind, that it's able to walk into wormholes and to simply vanish into thin air. Is that what we're seeing with some of these alien entities? And could it be that some of these entities are, in fact, well, nefarious in nature? Could they be preying upon humans? But tonight, we also have cyber prophecy and we have Cryptid Corner, and both of those are going to be interesting to touch upon. The webbot, again, is reiterating some very, very fascinating tidbits of predictions and information that, should aid us all going forward into this really time of tribulation and of a lot of unknowns. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and the webbot kind of has an interesting point, as always, to make about what's traversing right now, what's happening right now in the real world. And we will get back to that and Cryptid Corner right after our break.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve. Not on my watch, they say, as they leave their families behind to keep the rest of ours safe. As they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve, the therapists they need to walk again, the treatment they need to talk again, the lifetime of day-to-day help they need to live full and independent lives. When there's no more government funding, or a nursing home seems like the only option, or everyone says there's no hope for recovery, we won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
knows what lurks, what deceives? Lost in thought, we drift away. Different world in the light of day. Past and present blend as one. In the forest where there's no sun, ghostly visions, they come and go. Secrets hidden we may not know. Dogman prowls, Bigfoot roams. In these woods they make their homes.
Everybody, we are live, Paranormal Intelligence Agency Radio, and well, I was discussing these crazy jellyfish entities that keep being filmed. One was filmed by the military and one was filmed by this new Skywatcher group, and they're saying that these jellyfish show up whenever they play their electromechanical signal. Interesting stuff. But tonight we're going to be talking about a little cyber prophecy before we get to our main topic, which is really the secrets in Antarctica. Those are going to start making major headlines pretty soon. So let's kind of beat them to the punch and talk a little bit about what's actually in Antarctica and why it's such a big deal, really, for investigators like myself who over the years have heard little leaks and tidbits coming out about Antarctica and the idea that there's a vast secret being kept there. So, but the WebBot is telling us some interesting things, and it's saying that, or it's reiterating, I should say, that all of this economic turmoil that you're seeing is all related to the death of the petrodollar. Nothing is going to stop that from occurring. As far as the WebBot can see, there's a very small probability that the Trump administration is going to be able to, let's say, traverse the icebergs, shall we call it, to kind of navigate the icebergs in such a way that it's going to save the petrodollar. And a lot of that has to do and will be somewhat self-inflicted because they recently, and Trump was quoted as saying, something horrible was discovered, but he won't reiterate or elaborate on what that something was. But something truly horrible has been discovered by the Doge team. The WebBot is indicating that what it was that they discovered was these so-called black magic money machines that apparently were set up by the darkest of entities deep in our own government. And these machines set up at the Treasury have just been literally printing digital money nonstop. Just billions and billions and perhaps even trillions of dollars. Remember Donald Rumsfeld telling us all that there was $23 trillion missing from the Pentagon? Well, it's being kind of shown by the WebBot, or indicated through the WebBot, that a lot of this black budget money is now been discovered. Not only that, but they've discovered that what they're doing with that money, which is a lot of really dark type of stuff, everything from human trafficking to much darker than that. And that the Doge team is turning off the spigots one by one by one. They're all getting turned off to all of these programs. That's going to cause a lot of repercussions. And the WebBot says harsh repercussions. So, in other words, yeah, it has to be done, but it's been going on so long, and the people that have been perpetrating these crimes behind the American taxpayers' back have so dug themselves in to places of power, and unseen power utilized and protected by back-engineered alien technology. That once the money dries up, there's going to be a lot of really harsh, things that occur. One of those things is the death of the petrodollar. It says there's a very low probability that the Trump administration is going to be able to pull off enough moves, and these tariffs are part of that overall move to try to lessen right now the amount of money that we have to borrow to maintain our lifestyle. That's all the tariffs are doing. At $2 billion a day, you're just lessening the amount you have to continue to borrow. And that's just trying to slow the boat down so they can figure out how to get it turned around, because if not, we're going down like the Titanic. This economy based on nothing but debt that produces absolutely no goods or services, really, we're a service economy, I suppose. So everybody's waiting tables on everybody else, and there's nothing being produced. That can only exist for so long, and then it just absolutely implodes. And that's where we're at. We're at the stage of implosion. Now, past that will be the introduction of ZPT, or zero-point energy systems. ZPT, zero-point technology, is going to be the savior that comes to the rescue of the human race and its economy. But there's little that can be done to save a debt-based economy. There's no reworking that. There's no way to pay off $36 trillion and introduce a new system. That's almost impossible to do. And that's what they're being asked to do. So I don't really envy the people who are in power these days. I think that they have an impossible task ahead of them. And it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this really plays out. But you have to realize that it's been many years ago that the WebBot predicted that ultimate disclosure would come about. And disclosure, I mean UAP/UFO/aliens disclosure would come about through economic turmoil. Whoever thought that that would be the case? But that apparently is the case. And it's through Doge, and it's, sort of probing the government, no pun intended when we're talking about aliens. But their probing of the government and its programs led to the discovery of what it looks like is the actual money machine that's funding all of this back-engineered alien tech that's being used in really dark ways. And it also says that no one knows how much money there is out there, how many actual dollars is out there. It even spit out the term illegal inflation of debt instruments. So that means somebody's been printing a whole lot of money behind the backs of everybody else, and they've been using that money to fund their programs. And it's so much money that it could cause absolute hyperinflation to the point where the dollar becomes like the peso of old. You can buy a loaf of bread, but it'll cost you $30,000 because that's what it's worth. Nothing. So it's like that. And the webbot's also indicating that there's a lot of hesitation coming from this administration to come right out and say a lot of this stuff. They know, and they're smart enough to know. And Trump was actually educated by Jesuit priests. And so by that, I mean, he's part of the old school educated who believe in the system and think that you can save a debt-based system. And I think that they're being faced with a true horror show when they look at the balance books right now. But the webbot's indicating that the reason why the Epstein files haven't been released is because there's a direct tie to Israel's Mossad, which has a direct tie back to our CIA. And all of it is tied to money laundering, which is tied directly to the black program. So in other words, the money that Epstein was manipulating was helping to fund some of these black programs. And if the list ever came out, it would become known that that's the case, and that would cause major upheaval. There's a reason why they're not releasing it. Beyond that, it talks about destruction of belief systems worldwide. And, you know, let's face it, about a third of the world needs religion. They're young souls, and they're here on the planet, and they need that kind of structure so that they don't go absolute bat crazy and you know, act out on that kind of craziness. There's a reason why religion was introduced at some point, but we've reached a stage where many people are kind of moving beyond that point of needing it. Yet there are still many among us who rely upon it, who without it would find absolute meaninglessness in their existence. So, and it went on to say, the minute they shut down these, quote, black money machines, unquote, or I'm sorry, there will be hard ramifications, unquote. Fascinating stuff. And tonight's Cryptid Corner, real fast, is the fact that there's nonstop new occurring Beast of Bray Road sightings. There's even been some investigators get some pretty interesting thermal imagery of what appears to be the Beast of Bray Road. Thermal imagery and infrared imagery of what appears to be eye shine on what must have been an absolutely enormous head from the video that I've been able to see. And you have Dr. Hightower once again reporting a case coming out of around 2016 of a backyard dogman encounter in Tulsa County, Oklahoma. And I've talked previously how there is a long history of dogman sightings and interaction in Oklahoma, so much so that the great Linda Godfrey, who broke the Beast of Bray Road story for the whole nation to digest, even wrote about Oklahoma's dogman activity. So here yet again is another encounter. This gentleman walked out of his back door. He looked out. He could see a large figure. He was able to shine a light upon the large figure. He said, from the back, the shoulders looked like they were 5 or 6 feet across. So you're talking about just a massive, massive animal. He said he stood up and he could see the back of it, and it started to turn around and look at him, and he expected to see a Bigfoot face. And instead of seeing a Bigfoot face, he saw a wolf's head. He noticed other movement, 2 or 3 individuals off in the distance, and looked out. They were too far away to get a good beat on them, but he said that he thought that they were either young creatures or they were coyotes. Interesting, because a previous witness had seen one of these dogman creatures in the company of other coyotes, or in fact, he was calling coyotes when he had interaction with this dogman creature. Little patterns here and there. But the backyard encounter reminded me of the Lakewood lichen case that I investigated so many years ago outside of Denver, Colorado. But tonight, we are going to discuss our main topic here is the secrets of Antarctica. And, I previously have talked about the ancient history of Mars. And what's really fascinating is that the ancient history of Mars really tied to the ongoing secrecy taking place in Antarctica. And by that, I mean, when you take the blind remote viewing of various groups, including Farside and Dick Algeier, and a few other really accomplished remote viewers out there, Joseph McMoneagle being one of the greats, and you examine their remote viewings on ancient Mars, you come to a vast amount of really valuable information, and that information seems to coincide with our current day known science information. For instance, the remote viewers have reported that in ancient times there was a culture, a society, a people on Mars. They were human-ish, human-like, but not human. And that they built structures like pyramids, etc. The remote viewers at Farsight will tell you that accompanying or near Mars at that point in time, and this was eons and eons ago, there was a neighboring planet, and that planet was inhabited with another alien species. And these two groups began to war with one another. This led to a total devastation of Mars' atmosphere, and it led to vast amounts of xenon-129 being deposited on the surface of Mars, which only occur through nuclear explosions. The remote viewers said that they were able to target what appeared to be the Martians launching a type of super weapon right before their atmosphere fully gave way. Right before they collapse as a society, they launch a mega weapon. And this weapon is the baddest thing that they can possibly devise, and it's a planet killer. And it apparently did hit its target. This was a planet inhabited by a reptilian species. The species was decimated on their home planet, other than certain colonies that still existed on the Earth. The Mars culture were left with really only one option. I mean, they could stay on Mars and die. And they were, at one point, as McMoneagle put it, they were huddled inside their pyramid-like structures as the outside atmosphere just began to rip and tear apart. Or they could build some, what the viewers called space arcs, and set sail for the only planet that was habitable in our solar system for them, and that was the Earth. It just so happens at that point in time, the place that we call Antarctica was in fact a tropical jungle. And they landed in what is Antarctica today, and they built a society there. And you're talking about a time when ancient time, when Atlantis was still around. There was a global upheaval that took place. Many people refer to it as Noah's flood. We're not sure what the mechanism was by which that flood took place, but it appears as though it was whatever it was, it caused a extremely rapid melting of the ice caps that had been built up during the Ice Age. And when it did, it raised sea levels. At the same time, I suspect that the ocean, which is underneath, right underneath the Earth's crust, which actually has more water in it than our actual oceans, was through a planetary mechanism released. And that also allowed for entire mountain ranges to become covered. When this occurred, it shifted continents, and Antarctica ended up where it did, a frozen mass, destroying the last remnants of the Mars culture that had landed there. But right before it did, there was a diaspora of these Martian people around the world. And evidence for that diaspora can not only be found in places like ancient Egypt, and their depictions of elongated skulls, but you can find them in the actual skulls of the Martian people themselves, which are today referred to as the Paracas skulls of Peru. And you can see these skulls online. They're missing the sagittal crest suture down the center of the skull, which would be non-human. Humans have that suture. These creatures did not. These humanish creatures did not. They have extremely large skulls. And, many skeptic has reported, well, they were just using ritual head binding. No, they weren't. And the only reason why the indigenous people began to use ritual head binding was trying to emulate these Martian people, whose cranial capacity has been proven to be 30% larger than a normal human skull. Now, you can change a lot of things through ritual head binding. You cannot change cranial capacity. That is a genetic impossibility, meaning that these beings, these human-like beings, which really, other than their elongated skulls and very large eyes and very large bones and structure, probably appeared quite human-like in their appearance, appear to have been readily accepted in ancient cultures worldwide, and then deposited a lot of ancient knowledge into these cultures, which became embedded into ancient mystery schools. This apparently was a theme that took place over 3 different alien cultures. Secrets from these alien cultures became embedded in our ancient mystery schools, and a lot of secrets had to do with how to use natural human biology in order to interact with our world in ways that are unseen and are currently unsuspected by our modern day scientists. And by that, I refer to, coming full circle again, to psionics and psychic abilities. So all of this fits together. And when you go down into this rabbit hole, there are many different tunnels that shoot off from the central theme. And each one has to be explored in conjunction with knowledge of all of the other tunnels to fully understand what it is that we're looking at. And so here we are, modern day, flash forward to the here and the now. We are rediscovering the fact that our biology can and will, with the right knowledge and right techniques, all of which were long ago encapsulated in ancient mystery schools, through our interaction with a non-human intelligence, are the very techniques that we're beginning to reuse again in order to contact and have interaction with alien manufactured technological craft. Think about that. Try to wrap your head around that. Because the truth, my friends, is truly stranger than fiction. And you can't make this stuff up. I should actually begin to write a lot of fiction and just put this all down in fictional form. But why? Why not just write about the truth and continue to write nonfiction? And before we go, check out my new book, which is called The Devil's Key. And it is out there on Amazon. And I present a possible solution to all the missing people in all of the world's Devil Triangle areas and the Devil Place Name areas where they seemingly go missing all the time. So check out The Devil's Key. It is out there. And so far, it's been doing well. I hope the Missing 411 crowd begin to peruse the pages of The Devil's Key, because I think that they will find that it fits perfectly into that puzzle. And with that, I will see you guys next week, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Central. And until then, you guys be good.